Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Read TFOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Standard Regulation, written by bellumaster. Ricky took the shot across the medium-sized office into the waste bin. The crumpled-up piece of paper conked off the side of the bin and fell to the floor. Nailed it! Ricky stood at one of the 4 workstations in the airy room. It was bright and cheery, quite against the common idea of government workspace. But then again, it technically wasn't government. It was only one of 4 main governing branches that balanced one another while abiding by the higher, more vague rules that the majority of advanced intelligent species had agreed upon. Even if it was explained on paper, it was a hot mess, but it worked. For now. Wasted energy, Ricky. Walk, drop, efficient. Her voice was dull and droning, but curt, with no give. That was Golem, his manager, one of the Xeem that had beaten the human systems into place. When humanity had made contact with the heavens, the Xeem had been waiting like a nun with a switch to trim off the fat of the governing bodies, and no amount of red tape could stop them. It had been a hectic 20-something years, but what remained was more reminiscent of a racing pit crew than a department of licensing. If things needed to happen, they happened, and fast. Strict regulations were imposed on nepotistic habits, while false advertising and advertisements in general were burned at the stake. Humanity's government, stripped of fat and complacency, now ran with an efficiency of energy that would arouse jealousy in the engineers of the first satellites. It worked so well that Ricky was almost bored. He got up, strode over to the bin, and put the crumpled ball inside before heading back to his seat. Golem tracked his motions with slow eyes, never moving so much as a muscle. The Xeem waited until Ricky was back at his workstation to admonish him again. Wasted energy, Ricky. So you keep telling me, boss. You should see me play basketball. You would have a stroke. Limited energy. Conserve, live long, centuries. And again, that's not how it works with us. I got maybe another 80 years before I keel over, and I'm not going to spend it like a sloth. His description was apt. Golem reached across his desk for another one of the permit applications with a curious slowness of movement that could be compared to a sloth. The paper crinkled in the stiff digits of his hand as he pulled it back towards him. Paper they'd been allowed to keep. It wasn't the same kind as it had been back on Earth. That stuff was collectible at this point. But it was still paper, pulped and pressed from what was apparently the optimal fiber available for its production. The Xeem didn't mess around. Everything was optimized and built to last. Ricky flipped through a few papers on his desk before settling on one to handle. Suddenly, a loud thump issued from outside the workspace, with a loud roar following. Their workstations trembled as an enormous creature jammed itself into the room, huge and scaled and bearing plenty of teeth in its mouth. Ricky sighed. I am very upset, issued the translation in his head, several times shorter than the verbal stream that spewed from the creature's mouth. Ricky wondered how accurately the translator could handle menish profanity and where the settings were to adjust it. Golem looked up slowly. Calm. The mem roared again, furious and loud. Menish physiology was huge, serpentine, and often compared to Chinese dragon or mythical lamia. Their planet had a lower gravity yield and was covered mostly in swamps, which led to their great size. Ricky took a step towards it. You are upset. My name is Ricky, and I'm here to help. What is your name? Golem spoke again, cut and curt. Permit. The big Medusa-like creature squirmed. Lock Harvestema Christa. I filed a complaint in the main office, and it will take too long to go through. A day is too long? The conversion festival is in a half a cycle, and I cannot be tardy. I am upset. Ricky nodded. You are trying to get to the Grubvorman festival within a half cycle. A quarter of one, if possible. If possible. What is the issue, Vestema? Why are you upset? The massive creature fell silent, body squeezed within the doorway. The charter vessel is too small. I cannot fit inside. Ricky looked to Golem, who did nothing. He turned back to Vestema. That's fixable. I can charter one of the local cargo vessels to take you. It will be ready in A cargo vessel? Have you no properly sized vessels? Not these tiny cramped boxes you claim are livable? I've been eating my hotel for 2 cycles, now waiting for these accommodations. We do not have any managed-compatible civilian vessels at the moment. We can charter a cargo vessel, or you can take a small one. Vestima thrashed around a bit in frustration, becoming even more wedged in the doorway. Why is everything so small? There are Rands, Turvians, and May, yet still everything is puny. Normative average, Golem said, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. What? What did you call me, you? Ricky quickly placed his body between the two. What the good Kazim said is that there is an average size, and our facilities reflect the needs of those who use them. Average? I am below average size, and you still can't. Numbers, planets. If everything exists on a bell curve, then the standard planet is at the center, which is why we called it the standard, yes? Vestima grumbled, which came through as translator as an affirmative. Then the standard planet size, on average, and with all things being equal, will eventually produce a standard size being. Would this be correct? Yes. Ricky motioned to the doorway, some 4 meters high. Therefore, the majority of buildings, civilian housing units, and chartered transport vessels are built to accommodate those standard sizes. Does that make sense? The men were silent for a moment. What harm would it do to have surplus of large vessels? None, if I'm honest. But the larger species don't tend to travel as much for some reason. It couldn't possibly be due to the discomfort and lack of amenities, could it? A jab took him off guard. Ricky paused. Vestima had him there. Okay, maybe. Could be. Tell you what, if you can handle riding in that cargo vessel, I'll see if I can add another 2 civilian transport vessels to each sector's fleet. How does that sound? Good. I am no longer upset. I'm glad. I'll make the arrangements now. You'll receive the details shortly. Vestima grumbled, then shifted a bit in the door. Its body had the girth of a missile and was wrapped in tight coils within the doorframe. Ricky and Golem watched in silence as the large creature squirmed and shifted. Vestima, are you all right? I'm stuck. Golem slowly rose and walked ponderously over to the doorframe. It took him at least 3 minutes, all while Ricky stared aghast. This was the first time in 4 years he'd seen Kazim stand up from its desk. It even ate and slept there. With a sudden burst, Kazim rammed its bulky body against one of the men's coils, and they both burst from the doorway to fall in the hall. Vestima wriggled and unlooped Golem from its coils. Ricky gawked, his eyes wide. My gratitude, Kazim. Farewell. The huge serpentine creature wound its way from the hall and back to the civilian area, leaving Ricky bent over Golem, helping him up. Golem, are you crazy? What was that? Energy, Ricky. Well spent. The Kazim shrugged him off and began to arduous trek back to his desk. Ricky shook his head and returned to his workstation, where he promptly filed the appropriate digital forms and paper invoices, and sent them out so that the Vestima could make it back to its festival. Then he finished the form that he'd previously been working on and crumpled it up in the now redundant invoice into a ball. Am I clear to requisition these 2 civilian Leviathan transport vessels? Golem answered from where he was, still several feet from his workstation. 3. Save energy in future. He nodded, then turned to the corner of the room. Ricky took the shot across the room towards the wastebin, and the crumpled piece of paper went right in. He pumped his fist. Yeah! Nothing but net, baby! Efficient, Ricky. End of story. I would just like to thank the T5 supporters. Bushmaster 117, Casper Arnholtz, Draxzoon WRE, Elijah Silvercross, Gray, John Carrington, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.